Today, we are counting down 15 insects that seem completely unreal and explaining exactly why they look that way. Some of these insects are masters of illusion. Some evolved body parts that make no sense at first glance. And a few are so disturbing that even scientists had to stop and ask, what exactly am I looking at? Let's begin. At number 15, we have the Atlas moth. This is one of the largest insects on Earth, and it barely looks real. Its wings are enormous, rich with patterns, and somehow elegant and threatening at the same time. But the most unbelievable detail is at the tips of its wings. They look like cobra heads. And that is exactly the point. Those snake-like shapes are a defense mechanism. When predators see the moth from the wrong angle, especially when the wings move, the silhouette can suggest the head of a snake. That moment of hesitation can be enough to save its life. Think about how insane that is. This insect doesn't fight, it doesn't chase, it doesn't sting. It survives partly by wearing the visual illusion of a much more dangerous animal. Nature basically gave it built-in psychological warfare. At number 14, the jeweled flower mantis looks like something painted by hand. It's small, colorful, almost decorative. The kind of insect you'd assume has to be harmless because it looks too beautiful to be dangerous. But that beauty is a trap. Its wing patterns include dramatic eye-like markings that can suddenly flash into view when threatened, startling predators. At the same time, its flower-like appearance helps it blend into blossoms where prey gets close without realizing the danger. So this insect lives in a strange dual reality. To prey, it looks inviting. To predators, it can suddenly look shocking and intimidating. That's what makes it feel unreal. It's not just beautiful, it's strategically beautiful. At number 13, the jewel caterpillar might be one of the strangest looking larvae on Earth. At first glance, it doesn't even look alive. It looks like translucent candy, tiny beads of glass, or some kind of decorative gummy sculpture. But those glossy jewels covering its body aren't soft decorations. They're actually fragile, gelatinous spines, and when something tries to attack, those spines can break off and help deter predators. This is what makes so many bizarre insects so fascinating. The parts that seem ornamental are often weapons, armor, or warnings. The jewel caterpillar looks like a toy. In reality, it is a survival machine disguised as something edible. Now we move into the insects that don't just look strange, they look like objects. At number 12, the giant stick insect is camouflage taken to an absurd extreme. It is so long and so branch-like that it can look less like an animal and more like a walking piece of wood. There are moments where your eyes can be staring right at it and still fail to register that it's alive. That's the whole strategy. Predators search for movement, outlines, contrast, and familiar shapes. This insect erases almost all of that. It becomes the background. It hides in plain sight so effectively that its greatest defense is simply being ignored. And honestly, that may be one of the most powerful survival strategies in nature. If nothing realizes you exist, nothing tries to eat you.
At number 11, the thorn bug proves that even tiny insects can look completely impossible. This little creature resembles a thorn growing from the plant it lives on. Its sharp dorsal horn makes it look less like a bug and more like a part of the stem itself. And that is exactly why it works. Predators scanning branches for prey are less likely to notice something that looks like normal plant armor. The thorn bug doesn't need speed or size. It just needs to convince the world that it is not food. What makes it so uncanny is how precise the illusion is. It's not vaguely thorn-like. It really looks like a natural extension of the plant. At number 10, the leaf insect takes disguise to another level. Most camouflage animals resemble something. This one practically becomes it. It doesn't just look like a leaf in shape. Its body imitates damaged edges, uneven coloration, and even the kind of imperfections you'd expect from a real leaf sitting out in nature. And when it moves, it often sways like a leaf blowing in the wind. That is such a ridiculous level of detail that it almost feels intentional in a human design sense. But evolution got there through pure survival pressure. The more convincing the imitation, the better the chance of avoiding detection. And this is where the video gets even crazier because some of these insects don't just look fake, they behave in ways that complete the illusion. If you're enjoying this countdown so far, subscribe because the insects in the second half get even more bizarre. And number 1 is genuinely hard to forget. At number 9, the Violin Mantis looks like nature decided to sculpt an insect out of dry shadows and dead leaves. Its body is extremely thin with elongated shapes and appendages that create a silhouette uncannily similar to a violin. It blends into dry vegetation with such precision that, unless it moves, it can look like a strange piece of debris hanging among branches. And like many mantises, it uses that invisibility not just to hide from danger, but to hunt. That's what makes these creatures so unnerving. The disguise isn't passive, it's part of an ambush system. Now we enter the insects with body designs that seem less like camouflage and more like alien engineering. At number 8, the giant longhorn beetle looks prehistoric. It's huge, armored, and equipped with massive mandibles that look like saw blades or antlers from some lost monster of the ancient world. Its body is covered in geometric patterns and textures that make it seem almost mechanical. This is one of those insects that instantly triggers the feeling that evolution can be far stranger than fiction. Its size alone is shocking, but the mandibles are what really make it unforgettable. They look exaggerated, oversized, and almost impractical. But in nature, exaggerated structures often evolve through combat, defense, competition, or display. So when an insect looks absurdly overbuilt, there's usually a brutal reason behind it. At number 7, the spiny leaf insect is one of the best examples of a creature that looks multiple things at once. It resembles a dead leaf, but also a clump of moss, but also somehow a tiny dragon. Its body is covered in spikes and irregular textures that break up its outline, making it harder to identify. And when disturbed, it can curl its abdomen in a way that resembles a scorpion. That fake threat display is brilliant. Even if the predator figures out it's not a leaf, now it has to consider whether this odd little creature might sting or fight back. Confusion creates hesitation, hesitation creates survival.
At number 6, the giant devil's flower mantis may be one of the most theatrical insects alive. It is large, dramatic, and almost impossibly ornate. When threatened, it can spread out and reveal bright, intense colors in a display that makes it look larger, stranger, and far more dangerous than expected. The result is incredible. One second, it resembles an exotic flower. The next second, it becomes a flashing warning sign. And that sudden transformation is the key. Predators rely on quick judgment. If the harmless-looking plant suddenly explodes into color and shape, the shock alone can break the attack. This insect doesn't just defend itself, it performs. At number 5, the Scorpionfly looks like someone combined 3 unrelated animals and called it a day. It has the face of something specialized, the body of a fly-like insect, and in males, a tail that looks disturbingly similar to a scorpion's stinger. But here's the twist. That tail isn't for stinging. It's actually used in mating. And that is one of the reasons insects seem so unreal to us. We instinctively interpret body parts based on familiar danger signals. If we see something curved and scorpion-like, we assume venom. But evolution often reuses dramatic shapes for completely different purposes. So the scorpionfly looks like a threat, even when the most terrifying part of it isn't actually a weapon. Now we're entering the final stretch, and this is where the list stops being merely impressive and starts becoming deeply unsettling. At number 4, the puss caterpillar might be one of the greatest examples of deceptive appearance in the insect world, because it looks harmless. Actually, more than harmless. It looks soft, fuzzy, almost cute, like a tiny wig with legs or a miniature pet you could pick up without thinking twice. That would be a terrible mistake. Hidden beneath that fur are extremely venomous spines capable of causing intense pain. This caterpillar is basically a warning against trusting appearances in nature. The fluff is not comfort. The fluff is a disguise. And that contrast is what makes it so disturbing. Some of the most dangerous things don't advertise danger in the way we expect. At number 3, the Brazilian treehopper may be one of the most weirdest insects ever discovered. It has a bizarre structure rising from its back that looks like a crown topped with little spheres. It's so odd that when people first see it, many assume it has to be fake, edited, or artificially designed. But it's real. And what makes it even more fascinating is that scientists still aren't completely sure why those strange orb-like structures evolved. That uncertainty makes it even better for a video like this. Most bizarre insects can at least be explained through camouflage, intimidation, mimicry, or mating. But this one still holds on to some mystery. And honestly, that mystery is part of what makes nature so addictive to explore. Sometimes the most honest answer is, we still don't fully know.
At number 2, the Stockeye fly looks like a glitch in nature. Its eyes aren't on its head, they're on the ends of long, thin stalks stretching out from its face. In some cases, the span between its eyes is wider than its entire body. It looks like a living optical illusion. But the way it gets those eyes is even weirder. When the fly emerges from its pupa, it literally gulps down air, pumping it through its head to inflate those stalks like long balloons until they lock into place. Why? Because in their world, size matters. The wider the eyes, the more powerful the male appears to rivals and mates. It's an evolutionary arms race where the prize is having the strangest face on Earth. And now at number 1, the insect that may be the ultimate example of this cannot be real. The assassin bug. Not just because it looks strange, but because of what it does. This insect hunts ants, kills them, and then attaches their empty bodies onto its own back. It literally creates a backpack made of dead ants. That sounds invented. It sounds like horror writing, but it's real, and it's brilliantly effective. The pile of ant remains helps disguise the bug from predators and may also protect it from the ants it hunts by confusing the colony. In other words, it turns its victims into camouflage and armor. That is such a dark, efficient, and unforgettable strategy that it almost feels like the perfect ending for this list. Because when people say nature is incredible, they often mean beautiful. But nature is also ruthless, weird, and at times completely shocking. And the assassin bug represents that perfectly. It doesn't just survive by hiding, it survives by wearing evidence of what it has already killed. That is why it takes the number 1 spot. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more countdowns and explained videos like this one. And don't forget to comment which insect was your favorite, which one looked the most unreal, or which one you would absolutely never want to see in real life.